Yeah, meeting yourself with authenticity. Whether on the workout mat or out in the world, one of our most powerful tools we can have is to know our capabilities, strengths, and limits. So, with our Woliba January theme of mindset mastery, I thought it would be really cool to step back and kind of reflect on January, right? January is the time of kind of how can I arrange my mind? How can I go after my goals? What are my goals? It's like full steam ahead. And then January has 31 whole days. I saw this meme actually the other day that was like, the thing about January is she makes you feel all 31 of her days. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way. January is a long month. And I think it's really important to look at pacing when it comes to meeting our goals with authenticity. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. If you've been feeling burnout, if you've been feeling like your goals are a little too overwhelming, or maybe you already have had to take a step back and start off smaller, I'm here to tell you that that's the right decision and kind of lead us into how we can merge that with our goals and how looking at reality really is important. So, my name is Alana. I am a 200-hour registered yoga teacher in New York. I teach prenatal, yin yoga, I teach vinyasa and restorative. And I like to think I help people find space within their bodies. Yeah, that's how I kind of describe what yoga teaching is. I help people find space within their own bodies so that they can live a freer and more grounded life. Yeah. I also have a BFA in acting and dance. That's what I went to college for. I performed a little bit and then I said, let's do yoga. So that's where I am, and I'm in New York. So, on to our presentation. What is personal potential? So, I have two definitions, both from Oxford Dictionary. The adjective definition of personal potential is having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. The noun definition is latent qualities or abilities that may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. So these are very similar things, having the capacity, right? Having the kind of I'm almost thinking of pasta and boiling water, right? You want the pasta dish, spaghetti and meatballs, and the potential is the uncooked pasta and it is the boiling water, right? That and you create those things to get the goal of the delicious meatballs and pasta. So this is um this is related to personal growth and goal setting because we need to take a good hard look at our actual potential, where it actually is, and how much of it we actually have, and how that relates to our goals. I'll elaborate as we go through this talk. So, where I like to start is from a place of reality. To realize our goals, we need to be in touch with reality. And I underlined the word real because without without reality, we can't realize our goal. We can't materialize that or manifest that. We have to be in touch with what is real, reality. On the mat or track or gym, we might want to be able to touch our toes. We might want to run a 6 minute mile. That's really fast for me, at least. I feel like I run a 10-minute mile. So 6 minutes, fantastic. Or we might want to squat twice our body weight or go into Instagram glorified yoga poses. Okay, I see that a lot as a yoga teacher. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But these can be really big goals. And again, this is just really for fitness. I'm going to go into another area in my next slide. But excuse me, personal life goals can also be really weighted like this. Like these examples at the track or the gym or the mat, these are really far reaching goals. And sometimes when we're not careful, we can first of all too far shoot them, and they're too big, they're too far. And we also can have this kind of pattern seep into our personal life goals. For example, improving relationships in your life or hobbies or nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. A workplace example, right? On or at work, we may want to increase sales by 50% by the end of the month. We might want to climb to an executive or admin level, right? We might want that big promotion. We may even want to leave our job and start a whole new career path or business. So, again, these goals are fine to have. No goals are really bad goals, right? What is a bad goal anyway? But we need to touch back with reality, the reality of starting slow, which brings me to the meat and potatoes of this talk, which is in order to grow, we also need to deeply accept. Yeah, deeply accept, be in touch with reality. If we put too much pressure on ourselves and are too rigid with our goals, we may skip over the actual steps in order to achieve them, thus halting our progress even further. I don't know about any of you, but sometimes when I have really big goals, I'm very specific about them. I really want to get there. And sometimes what ends up happening is I jump from point A to point C, or even point A to point D, but I've missed B and C. And you need to kind of hone in to those smaller steps because that really is important. I'm going to give you an example of from my line of work as a yoga instructor, and it's about touching your toes. So, that example from earlier in this slide, let's say it goes touching your toes. You really want that back strength or back flexibility and your hamstring strength. So, a lot of times what I see in my class is forward fold. Yeah, forward fold, you're standing and you forward fold. And this is what I see. If a person has locked their knees, they don't have the hamstring flexibility, and they have a tight back, this is what I see. But this is not achieving our goal. Everything's tight. What I say is, okay, bend your knees. And then once you bend your knees, and you can bend them as much as you need because your spine will fold over your legs if you bend your knees enough. Then you can touch your toes. Yeah? So this is achieving our goal much more than this. You see? Or let's look at wanting to run an 8-minute mile. Maybe you start really fast because you're excited and you're like, okay, it's already 4 minutes, 50 seconds. Like, I gotta go. It's time is catching up. But then what ends up happening is you run really, really fast because you want to achieve that goal. And then you use too much energy, right? It's like the tortoise and the hare story where the hare uses too much energy in the beginning, and then he's like, okay, I'm good. I gotta take a break now. And then the tortoise ends up beating him because slow and steady wins the race. Yeah. What happens is if you start pacing yourself and going at a slower speed, you can keep running the whole time, or maybe run more of the time than if you had just sprinting and then you had to walk. Yeah. It can also be hindering to go too fast in yoga. For example, with an arm bind, I'm going to show you in a second. An arm bind in a pose can really kill the form and the point of the actual pose. So here's what I'm talking about. This is a pose called extended side angle. Yeah. Your hip is open, your chest is open, and you're reaching forward. It can also look like this with the arm extended up. So, a variation I give to my students is take your top arm and option to bind it. This is the expression of that. My arm is bent behind my back, but my chest is still lifted and my hips are still open. You see, now what happens is if someone doesn't have an open shoulder already and they go for the bind, is something like this. Yeah, their shoulder is rolled forward. But if they were to take a step back and not do the bind and have the arm reaching, their chest is more opened here because they're using their forearm to turn themselves up. So this is much rather what I'd like to see than something like this. Because then you've lost the point of the pose. The hips are closed, the chest is closed. We need to be here. So this is much better than this. Okay. And to really take a step back, it's also worth talking about ego. Ego is a big thing because oftentimes we're kind of egoic about our own egos of like, I don't have a big ego. Like, this is just what I can do. I'm gonna do this. Taking a step back is lame. It's too slow. Like, I'm better than that. But it's not personal. Like, it is personal because it has to do with you, but it's not. The progress and the goals and your potential and where you're at and merging those two things, it is impersonal. So being realistic is actually a deep form of self awareness and self care. So at this point in my live event, I asked for examples, but maybe right now you just start to think of examples of a time you acknowledged reality and then started from a place of simplicity. Or maybe you cut back on your goals and you start a little smaller once you set that really big goal and you realize, oh, maybe this is a little too far out of my reach. And how did that help you achieve more? In my live presentation, a wonderful woman gave an example of how in the beginning of January she wanted to do 5 workouts a week, like structured workouts, 5 a week, which is a lot. And there's a lot of parts to our lives, a lot of moving parts. And she realized, okay, I'm gonna go more into um, exercising as I'm doing more daily activities. For example, walking during a meeting or doing my stair stepper when I'm working at my standing desk and stretching a little more. And she cut her goal to 3 workouts, 3 structured workouts per week, which I thought was really great and really smart because five, even the difference between 5 and 3 can be really overwhelming. Or I don't know, let's say you cooked for Thanksgiving this year. Yeah, and you wanted to tackle the turkey and you realized, okay, there are actually a lot more steps to this really gourmet turkey that I wanted to make in this recipe. Maybe we'll find a simpler recipe, or maybe we have someone else do the turkey for this year and I'll cover the mashed potatoes, or I'll help them with the turkey. And maybe next year I can do it alone. Just anything like that. So thinking of an example for yourself. To recap, the foundation to personal growth is reality and acceptance, aka meeting yourself where you're at and working from there. That's a big kind of saying we have in yoga is meet yourself where you're at, right? Because to meet ourselves where we're actually at is reality acceptance, reality and acceptance. And once we actually meet ourselves there, then we can adequately take steps forward, coming from a logical place, coming from a really honest place too, right? It requires courage to be really honest, and it requires surrender to be accepting of yourself and where you're at. So, everyone, I hope this helped you kind of reframe what goal setting can be, especially those of you who are a little more type A and go gettery and hustlers. It really helps to just slow things down every so often. And let's say you are absolutely killing it in the workplace, but you want to get your fitness on track. That's okay to be killing it there. Like, acknowledge you're killing it there. And maybe that can give you the permission to kind of slow it down in your fitness goals, slow it down with your nutrition goals, and work smaller. And so I hope you can apply this to anywhere you have goals in your life. Thank you so much for watching my event. And here's to pacing ourselves and keeping the big picture in mind. If you need more support, let's connect. I'm available for group coaching as well as one on one. Again, I'm a yoga instructor. I would love to create a plan for you and help you achieve your flexibility and mobility and finding space goals. And that is my email down below.